Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Kamhi, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
Greetings, and thank you so much for joining me, Kamhi, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Herbally Yours brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, I am happy to have as our guest Maryon Stewart, and she just came out with a beautiful brand new book with a foreword by Emanuela Wallach, medical doctor. It's called Manage Your Menopause Naturally, the 6-week guide to calming hot flashes and night sweats, getting your sex drive back, sharpening memory, and reclaiming well-being. Maryon is the author of 27 other books and is a world-renowned healthcare expert. She has helped tens of thousands of women around the world overcome PMS and menopause symptoms without using drugs or hormones. She was also awarded the British Empire Medal and was recognized as one of the most 50 inspirational women by the Daily Mail. You can find out more about her work, her books, and all things Maryon at maryonstewart.com, and that's Maryon Stewart.com. We'll also have a live link on our archive after the show. So thank you so much for joining us today, Maryon.
It's my pleasure.
Let's go back in time and explain to our audience how you got involved in the whole natural scene.
Yes, well, it was a story in itself, actually. I was breastfeeding at the time, my second baby, and my ex-husband and 3 other doctors were setting up the British Society for Nutritional Medicine, and they gave me 10,000 medical papers to sort into conditions because they didn't think I had anything else to do. And I found 200 papers on PMS, and that was when we started treating women with PMS, because I was amazed that you could manage PMS naturally. And so we set up a program based on those medical papers, and we found that we were helping 94% of women to be symptom-free within the space of 4 months. And that was taking them from even feeling suicidal and unable to cope at all to feeling the best version of themselves. So that was how it all began. And then in the early 90s, there were medical papers on menopause published where they showed that they could bring about similar changes using natural things as they would expect to see with hormone replacement therapy. And I therefore tweaked our PMS program and turned it into a menopause program.
Yes, actually, it's one of the places that natural therapies really shine. And I also have written a book on that, and it's called Cycles of Life, Herbs for Women, because we do talk about, like what you're saying, each cycle of life, like the cycle of infertility in younger women and the cycle of menopausal issues in older women. The thing is, they really respond well. But I'm sure you would agree, Maryon, that people have to actually make the changes in their own life. It's not a pill that comes externally.
No, I think there's a whole combination of things. There's 5 different approaches that we use. In fact, we use everything that research shows works to help women that is natural, to do with lifestyle, diet, exercise, and some supplements that have been through properly conducted clinical trials, including herbal products as well. And it is incredibly effective. It takes women from feeling like a shadow of their former selves through to better than they can remember. But the problem is, all our research and surveys, and we've surveyed thousands and thousands of women, feel that menopause is the end of life as they knew it. And they buy into that because no one ever tells them it's any different. And so we found, for example, in our last survey on 1,100 women, that 96% of them were completely unprepared for menopause. And it's not surprising because there was a Mayo Clinic survey published last year showing that only 7% of doctors and gynecologists felt adequately educated to help women going through menopause. So women are just left to fend for themselves, and they really don't know where to turn or what to do, especially when one of the main symptoms is brain fog and another one is insomnia. So they're not thinking straight, and it's a really difficult time in their lives, especially as they are expected to work and they're competing in the workplace with men. And falling over at the time of menopause is just not good. It's not good for them. It's not good for their self-esteem, or their career. And it's certainly it's not good for the companies that they work for, because Forbes said last year that menopause costs $810 billion in lost productivity globally each year. I mean, that's absolutely massive. So it's something that really seriously needs addressing, because we're an aging population, and it doesn't get any better after menopause either, because you're never going to have naturally occurring estrogen in your body. And our research shows that very often women have got quite significant nutritional deficiencies, which affects their brain chemistry and their hormone function. So we help women to have a midlife refuel. And that's why I've written this book, because I believe that every single woman on the planet has a right to quality, sound, science-based information that's going to help her to make this transition and be the best version of herself and make longevity a great experience.
Well, if anybody wants to get all the science, I would definitely refer them to your book, Manage Your Menopause Naturally. And we're interviewing author Maryon Stewart right here on Herbally Yours, the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, because you have, starting on page 246, so many references from mainstream medical literature that are tremendously useful.
Yes, I've put the references at the back to support everything we do, but actually I've threaded some of the research through the book so that it's in ordinary speak, as it were, so that people can understand why we're suggesting certain things. So, for example, all the research on exercise and relaxation, which has such a significant effect on everything from your waistline to your headspace. And it is really important at this point in time. You can't expect to go through menopause and feel well unless you get yourself in good shape. Because 100 years ago, we weren't living much past 50. So it didn't really matter. But now, when 40-something is halfway for so many women, it's really important to learn how to meet your needs. Because if you've got nutritional deficiencies, your hormones and brain chemistry are not going to work properly. And if you've got empty estrogen receptor sites, which is what happens when you reach menopause and you've got no more eggs dropping and the ovaries pack up and they finish their job, you really have to put naturally occurring estrogen. If you're not going to take hormones, and we don't ever use hormones because we don't need to, if you take Mother Nature's estrogen into those receptor sites, then they're going to seal off and you can fool the brain into thinking you've got normal circulating estrogen again. And it's terribly important, because if you don't do that, those receptor sites are so hungry for estrogen, they'll look around for environmental estrogen, which is really harmful and can increase the incidence of breast cancer. So if there was a race between Mother Nature's estrogen, the environmental estrogen, and hormone replacement therapy, Mother Nature's estrogen would win, jump into the receptor site and seal it off, and all is well. And it even affects not just your brain function so that you don't have brain fog. You can reclaim your short and long-term memory and cognitive function. But the research even shows that you can decrease the depths of wrinkles on your face significantly, even in the space of 12 weeks. So it helps to build new bone, protect you from heart disease. So many amazing benefits by learning to meet your needs.
Well, one way that you make it easy for anyone who has your great book, Manage Your Menopause Naturally, is that you have it's great to also see a doctor. And of course, we do have doctors who recognize things like nutrition as well as the use of natural estrogens. But you have wonderful worksheets in the book that people can really start on their own in a logical way. You have self-assessment charts and diet diaries and menopause solution worksheets that really makes it a wonderful way to go after all this. And I want to throw out one other thing. Although, of course, we're talking about women, I really find that men also have menopause. We call it andropause. But they face those same changes in terms of their body image, their amount of focus and concentration. But I don't know that they're always given the pass that women are given, because menopause is so well recognized as occurring in women.
Yeah, I think there's a debate over what you call andropause, but we've certainly got our hands full with women, because there are 1 billion women around the world going through menopause. And how I came to really focus on this was that I made 4 films for Facebook about 3 years ago on my phone, And over 1 million women saw those films within the space of 12 weeks. And I was just inundated with the most horrendous suffering. And it just made me feel that I couldn't carry on helping women on a one-to-one basis as I had been doing. And my 5-month program had been helping 91% of women be symptom-free. So I decided I'd take all the science from the 5-month program and break it into 6 modules. And those bite-sized chunks would help women to understand about the science and to help them to manage their menopause naturally. And so we set up a 6-week course, and it was all virtual. Even then, going back to before the pandemic, we were using Zoom. And women, it actually even surprised me because I didn't think 6 weeks would be long enough, because it's not even long enough to get your nutrients back into an optimum range. But even in 6 weeks, it was turning women's lives around. And today it's still doing exactly the same thing. I've got 2 women who are just finishing our 6-week course at the moment. One of them hadn't slept since she couldn't remember when for more than a couple of hours a night, and now she's sleeping all night. And the other one had horrendous migraine headaches and couldn't remember a day when she didn't have any. And she had 1 headache in the first week and she hasn't had another one since. And so it has, even apart from all the obvious menopause symptoms, it has such a profound effect on health and well-being. So that's why I've written this book, because this is effectively the course manual. And it's broken down into these 6 weeks and bite-sized chunks. Plus, there's also sections for after menopause to help women to understand how to future-proof their health and keep themselves in good shape in the long term. And as you said, we've got the worksheets in the back. So as you go through the book, you can create your own program. And there's also recipes and menus. So lots, if you like cooking, there's all of that for you. And if you hate cooking, then there's fast options and shopping lists and things that you can do that don't involve spending much time in the kitchen, but still you can meet your nutritional needs and the needs of the estrogen receptor sites.
Well, your modules are, each one of these things, like you can't do all of them at once. So you sort of do like what you're talking about, a jump start, like jump starting, because you do talk about changes unless someone's already there, such as food and nutrients and vitamins and nutrients and increasing nutrition and various exercises that are important, as well as specific herbal interventions. So where would you tell someone to start if they just weren't happy? I want to say one thing, though. I loved menopause, and I'm hitting 70 now, so menopause is about 20 years behind me. But I've been doing natural medicine since 1964, and I actually found it really exciting. I don't know why. I guess because it was about entering the golden years and programming our mind to, yes, it's not going to be the same as when you're 20, but that doesn't mean it's not good. It's a new viewpoint of life.
Yeah, I think it is, but I just feel that certainly from our research, let's say, first of all, 20% of women don't have any symptoms as they go through menopause, so it's a different experience for them. Some women feel absolutely terrible. They feel so depressed and so hopeless that there's anything good left for them. They feel like all the good years are gone and they're just an invisible shadow of their former selves. And so for those women, it's really a question of breathing life back into them and teaching them how to meet their needs, and also giving them hope in their heart that they can turn back their biological clock in a sense and feel better than they can remember, because the golden years are only golden if you're in good shape and you can enjoy them and embrace life and do all the things that you want to do in or out of the workplace. And if you're not feeling well, or you're crippled with osteoporosis or dementia, then it's not going to be good for you or your family or anyone in society. And so I think because we're an aging population, it's really important for us to learn to meet our needs. And in fact, we've teamed up with Virgin Care in the UK, and we're working with some other companies as well, where we're measuring productivity and efficiency, and we're delivering this 6-week course in the workplace to help women get back to feeling the best version of themselves and more productive, so that they can stay in the workforce rather than feeling that they need to leave when they get to menopause.
So it sounds like the first place to start. What is the first place to start? Because you have so many paths that can lead towards feeling better and more of a rejuvenative experience. So where would someone start?
Well, the way I've set the book out is to start at the beginning in chapter 1, which, as you say, is the jump start. And then there are self-assessment questionnaires as you go through. And so I've set it out in a particular order. So week 1 is all about the most common symptoms, giving self-help tips so people can get started immediately with something. And then in week 2, we take a deep dive into nutrition and detecting and correcting nutritional deficiencies.
Okay, so let me stop you there, Maryon. How would you suggest people detect nutritional deficiencies?
Okay, so Mother Nature gives us all these physical signs, skin, hair, and nail signs of vitamin and mineral deficiency. So if you've got cracking at the corner of your mouth or red patches on your nose, dry skin, greasy skin, your hair's not growing or it's lackluster, your nails are brittle, splitting, or ridged, pimples on your upper arms and thighs, all of those things mean something. So it's a question of identifying what your nutritional deficiencies are likely to be, and I've listed out all of them in the book so you can see the signs and symptoms. And then there are lists of foods that are rich in important nutrients, so you can then choose the foods you like and add those into your diet to make your diet more nutrient dense. And obviously there are some supplements you can take. So in chapter 4, I focus on the supplements, which are all the science-based supplements that have been through properly conducted clinical trials around the world. And I brought those together so people can choose the supplements that might work for them according to their symptom set.
So one of the ones that you mentioned, which I really do think almost everyone is nutritionally deficient in, because one thing we always do is I love those physical symptoms that people can look at themselves, and very often in traditional Chinese medicine, they actually recognize those. And in conventional medicine, rarely will you see a doctor nowadays looking at those symptoms. In fact, the only thing the doctors today look at is their computer looking for codes for billing. They don't come over, they don't smell a patient, they don't look for little bumps on their thighs or anything. So you're right, people have to self-initiate that. But you can do a blood level for nutrients, which is also, helps you see which ones you're low in. So you talk a lot about magnesium, which I really think is one of the preeminent ones for so many of these menopausal issues.
Yeah, we did 5 separate studies in the early days on women of childbearing age, and we found that between 50 to 80% of the women had low magnesium stores. And magnesium is important not just for hormone function, but it's also necessary for smooth muscle control. And the uterus and the gut are smooth muscle, so over 50% of women get constipated at the time of the menopause. Again, they're short of magnesium. It can make you really tired and achy. It's necessary for your muscle function, so sometimes people get cramps in their legs if they're short of magnesium, or they lose their appetite. Lots of different signs and symptoms, if you like, of magnesium deficiency. But if you said to the average person you're likely to have low magnesium, most women wouldn't have the faintest clue which foods were rich in magnesium, and that's the whole point. So this is it's put all the information in one place so people can go and find out what they're likely to be short of and then work out how to correct it. It's not just a question of taking a magnesium pill. Yeah.
And in terms of magnesium, though, it is true that certain foods, but the last measurements that I've seen, I don't know, maybe you can tell me where to look, because in the United States, the USDA analyses of foods and their magnesium content, those were put together around 1950. And unfortunately, the soil conditions have changed so much that even those foods that would naturally be high, such as kale in magnesium, may not still have enough.
No, if you've got a nutritional deficiency, you cannot rely just on food alone. You're probably going to need to take some supplements, especially in the short term. So that's why we've put all the information about the supplements together. And sometimes women going through our program, because the book will work for people suffering mildly to moderately. But if someone's really suffering severely and they need some extra help because they can't put it together themselves, then we do have the 6-week course. And in fact, we've got an assessment on my website. And we've also just recently set up the Midlife Refuel Club, so people can come, that's free, and people can come and join that and join our community. But we do help women. So we provide self-help information so that they can help themselves. And then if they run into trouble, we've got a safety net so we can help them to devise their program so they know exactly what they're doing. We take all the guesswork out of it. And hopefully that's what this book will do as well. I think it's just, for the first time, it's all in one place with all the references, and it's really easy to follow.
I love the name of that, the Refuel Club.
Yes.
Tell us where people can find out more about that. That's a fantastic name.
Yeah, they just go to my website. So there's an assessment you can take on there, but also you can join the Midlife Refuel Club. And we've got tons of self-help information in there as well. We've got films, we've got some printed information. There's just so much that women can access that is all science-based. And so it's very, and very user-friendly, because I've been helping women going through menopause for 28 years, and it's not just a question of giving someone the information. You've got to work out how to motivate them to stick to it, because unfortunately we're all busy, and as women we tend to put ourselves last. We're sort of bottom of our own priority list, and it's not really until we get to a point where we're in pain with something that we stop in our tracks and do something about it. And then when we feel a bit better, it's very easy to say, oh, I'm okay now, I don't need to do this anymore. But actually, you really do need to do it at least for 3 to 5 months, because you've got to get your nutrients back into an optimum range, and that takes a bit of time. And then you've got to get yourself into a good place so that you're ready to embrace the rest of your life. And once you're armed with that knowledge and you've reached that point, then you can go forward and pretty much go back to, I mean, we are asking people to make some dietary changes. So you, for example, caffeine will bring on hot flashes. It will make you feel anxious. It can give you panic attacks and palpitations, because women metabolize caffeine more slowly at midlife. So there are some sacrifices, but we're giving everything I take out, I give at least 1 or 2 suggestions of what you can have instead. And it really does work. It's not, and it is enjoyable. So whilst it may be a bit daunting to start with, I try and make it as easy as possible. And because women see the benefits, even within the space of a few weeks, they can see this big light at the end of the tunnel, then they're motivated to stick to it. And so it is really, it's all been geared to helping you to identify your program, but then also helping you to stick to it in the longer term, so that you do make the gain, make the progress, and come out the other end of the tunnel. And also for women who are younger, who are going through perimenopause, which is the 8 years leading up to menopause, if you catch this in time and you learn to meet your needs, I know from my past PMS patients that you won't fall down the black hole of menopause. You just will learn how to meet your needs and sail through menopause. And that's what it's all about, really. I think certainly working with women with PMS, I know that women don't need to go on suffering. And after menopause, I remember doing a book signing in Australia at Menopause the Musical, which is such a fabulous show. If it happens to come anywhere near you, go and see it, because it's very funny.
If shows ever come back.
Shows ever come. Or even you can go to YouTube probably and watch some clips, but it is very funny. But I was listening to people in the foyer going through, chatting to each other. And they were basically saying, no, I've been through menopause and I'm out the other end now, I'm fine. But actually, they're far from fine, because they've got another 30 or 40 years to live, and they haven't got their bones protected. So you're going to lose more bone mass than you're making. Their heart isn't protected. They're not protected from dementia. And they're more likely to have weight gain and diabetes. So it really is a question of learning to meet your needs so that you can prevent those things and stay really healthy in the long term. I just think there's no substitute for learning to meet your needs at midlife. I see these unbelievable transformations, women who literally were thinking, well, I've put case stories in the book, so you can actually see some of these women who, there was a professor, for example, I met at a conference, a menopause conference, and she was the co-author of the government report in the UK on menopause in the workplace. And she told me that she thought she had dementia, and she was only in her early 50s. And she was thinking of leaving the workplace. She had acne on her face for the first time. She was constipated, tired, and feeling really depressed. And I said, come on our program. And she did. And within the space of a couple of months, she had absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. Her skin was clear. Her gut was working normally. Her brain was clear, to the point where a few months later, she was actually, instead of leaving the workplace, she was made head of department at her university. And we hear stories like that all the time. And that's why I get out of bed in the morning, because I know it makes such a huge difference to women's lives. And as you said, not just women, but it also affects the men in their lives. It affects their work life and their whole family life. So if you want to be able to embrace everything good in life and get down on the floor and play with your grandchildren and have fun, then you need to learn to meet your needs.
Well, we touched briefly on Foods, that's going to be something someone has to look at. Certainly, perhaps nutritional supplements after we deal with food. That's why they're called supplements. You can't just cover up deficiencies with pills. You need to really look at what you're putting in your mouth in terms of food. And another big component, but there's so much more in your book, Manage Your Menopause Naturally, but exercise. We can't leave without talking about exercise.
No, you're right. In fact, I had a TV show in the UK, and one of the segments I did was on joint health, and I called Use It or Lose It, because if you don't use it, you will lose it. And when you're not feeling well, you don't really feel like exercising, and so things do stiffen up and dry out. And it's really important to learn to meet your needs so you can get your joints nice and supple again. And if you're not an exerciser, it's not about doing a marathon. Even putting your favorite music on and doing some singing and dancing for 5 or 10 minutes is a great start. And as time goes on, that's going to release endorphins, which make you feel good. It's going to speed up your metabolism, which slows down at midlife. And that's why you pile on the pounds around your waistline, around your middle. And it will help you to lose weight without dieting, but it also helps you to feel good and feel younger. And that's really important. So there's, again, finding the right kind of exercise that you enjoy doing. And these days, when so many gyms are closed, there's masses that you can do even on YouTube, or you can get a hula hoop and do that in front of the TV in the evening so you keep moving, a skipping rope, or whatever it is that you fancy doing, or just dancing. And honestly, you will feel so much better. I tend to do my exercise first thing in the morning because it sets me up for the day, and then I get really busy. But I just notice that it does change my mindset, and it's the same for everybody that I've ever come into contact with who gets and does some exercise. If you're already an exerciser, obviously you just keep on doing exercise. And the research shows doing 5 sessions a week is important, so not to overdo it either. And especially these days with COVID in the air, because if you've got high cortisol, the stress hormone, if you do too much aerobic exercise, it can actually make you feel worse. So it's just finding what works for you, what makes you feel good, and not overdoing it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that great information with us, Maryon. So I want to remind our listeners that we're talking to Maryon, and you spell your name Maryon, which is an unusual, yes. I don't know what your mother was thinking, right?
I think she had French or something French on her mind. And Stewart is with an EW, because there's 2 ways to spell Stewart as well, so that can get confusing.
And you have a wonderful website, great resources for our listeners. The name of the book is Manage Your Menopause Naturally. It's one of those areas of self-care that really shines. You get very, very quick results, and there's really no other way, but it works. And the wonderful thing too, Maryon, is while you're doing this for, let's say, menopausal symptoms, it also helps other things, instead of the other way that pharmaceuticals may help one thing but cause all kinds of adverse effects.
Yes, so I mean, I like to say it's a bit like a 5,000-mile service. You do, and you come out of the pit turbocharged so you can get on with the rest of your life. And it is a good thing to do.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Herbally Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC. Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamhi at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.